Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earle and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Today I sat down with Cody Byrns, an internationally recognized speaker and a #1 best-selling author. In May of 2013, Cody's life was drastically changed. While stopped at a red light on the highway, Cody was rear-ended by a box truck that failed to stop. As a result, he was considered dead until first responders saw his hand move. He received many injuries that day, including severe burns to almost 40% of his body. After years of countless surgeries and rehab, Cody has chosen to not allow his scars to keep him bound in bitterness and defeat. Instead, he uses his story to uplift others. His goal is to help people live free from the bonds of scars, physical and emotional.
May of 2013, my life as I knew it would come to a complete stop, and tragedy would strike, the unexpected. And I know that there's many people that may be listening or watching this that have certainly gone through the unexpected tragedies. And those could that could mean many different things. But for me, on May 31st of 2013, I was 23 years old, and I was active in ministry, traveling, doing all these things. And it was a Friday afternoon. I was stopped at a red light on the highway, and I was rear-ended by a refrigerator box truck that did not stop. So I was basically left for dead, because at the scene of the wreck, when the first responders came to the scene, I was actually in a Dodge Durango. My Dodge had blown up into flames. And so they had called it a fatality. And so they assumed me to be dead. They had then called the coroner and everything. But somehow or another, by the grace of God, they saw my hand move. And that little bit of movement changed everything for me. And I'm super grateful for that. But there's a powerful parallel in that story that I always love sharing with people, is that I was stopped at this red light on the highway. And I think a lot of people, once again, encountered tragedies, unexpected things, and we can sometimes translate those as stoplights, where our entire life as we know it comes to a complete stop. And we find ourselves trapped in a horrible situation. Sometimes we feel lifeless in the heat of life, and all we can do is call out to God. Or if they're not believers, people that may not be, believers listening to this, make a little bit of movement. And so that little bit of movement changed everything for me, because otherwise they would have let me continue to burn alive. During that time, I always love sharing the story of how my family was there. And I'm very grateful for my family. I love them all dearly. I am a family man, and we've all had close relationships through the years and still do. But during that time, they had gotten wind, everyone gotten wind of what had happened to me. And I come from a small town in southern Indiana, and a lot of people knew me and they knew what I did because I was traveling. I was actively doing things, people all over the world. And there was a Facebook page that had been started up by my family and kind of helping people see my road to recovery, where I was at. And my family had been posting a lot and encouraging people to pray. And we got a lot of prayers, a lot of support from people all over the place. Very, very fortunate. But my family was there, and I'm coming out of this coma off of life support. And I specifically remember the voice of my mom. And my mom, she told me, she said, Cody, you have been hit by a box truck. Your vehicle exploded into flames. You've been here in this burn unit for 3 weeks on life support in a coma, and you have severe burn injuries, 40%. Your recovery is not going to be an easy journey. But no matter what, Cody, don't lose sight of your vision.
Mm-hmm.
Your worldwide ministry has begun. And those words meant the world to me, and they still do to this day. And I think about how in life, we all have those moments where we get knocked down, but it's so important that we have people to remind us of what matters the most in life, and to keep focus on the vision. A very powerful, I'll just say that, powerful phone call with a great man of God. His name is Dave Reaver, and he served in Vietnam. And another pastor in Illinois had connected him and I. And on this phone call, Dave was sharing with me his story. And when he was in Vietnam, he went to throw a hand grenade, and a sniper had shot the hand grenade before he could release it, and it blew up all over his body. His face is scarred. He does have fingers amputated. And he shared with me how for years he battled with suicidal thoughts. And he would wonder, why would a loving God allow him to go through such suffering and pain? And he had shared with me his story of how he was on TV being interviewed. And the person that was interviewing him, she had said to him, Dave, do you know why God allowed you to be burned and scarred? And he told me, he's like, Cody, at the time when she said that, it frustrated me that she would ask me such a question on live television. But her statement after that changed everything for me. And he told me, Cody, she said to me, Dave, God did not do this to you, but he allowed it to happen. He allowed it to happen because he could trust you with the scars. He could trust you with the story, with the testimony. And that changed his whole perspective on his situation. And really, for me, it was the same. And it just shed more light that, yes, I don't believe God did this to me. I believe God isn't out to harm people. But we live in a world where people are able to make choices. And because of those choices, there's consequences. God is in control, but yet he allows us as humans to have control to some point. And out of that, there's things that happen that aren't so good. And, my injuries were caused by this other driver. I've also seen through this that, a lot of people have been scarred. And, I talk a lot about scars because of being a burn survivor. I have scars now, permanent scarring on my body. I've got them on my hands, my arms. My entire left leg is scarred. My entire right foot, large third-degree scars on my right leg. I've got some scars on my lower back. Just, they're all over the place. And a lot of my scars can be hidden depending on what clothes I'm wearing. And I say that because I've discovered that there's many people in today's world that have hidden scars, and people learn how to hide their scars well. And I'm not talking so much about the physical, but those emotional scars. And a lot of people have been damaged or hurt in some way. And a lot of these wounds, they come about from people's childhood, sadly. And it affects people and how they live their everyday life. And if they're not properly